she's asked a lot, how do you deal with your husband talking about another woman? Of course, it was first wife. She's not here anymore. And she's like, well, listen, here's the deal. I've been so touched by this story. And I know it's not about me or not about Melissa or about you. It's about Jesus. I'm not seething in the hopeless, place. And I did, because for a while I felt kind of hopeless, after everything happened. Of course, God was so faithful in the midst of all that. But now you just go, yeah, that was hard. That was difficult. You know what I mean? But God has healed that open wound. And now there's just a scar remaining. I think so it's the reminder that it's not the seething pain. It's not the wound that's seeping out still. You know what I mean? God has healed that. And so you have that reminder of his faithfulness,
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things
with Shawn and Andrew,
a podcast all about couples and the things they go through.
Today we sit down with Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter Jeremy Camp and his wife,
Adie Camp, who's also singer-songwriter.
That's right. They have had a massive 2020. They came out with a movie. They came out with 2 books. One of them is about their marriage, actually. It's called In Unison. And they're a really, really cool couple. They've been married 16 years, but the movie they came out with was called I Still Believe.
It's all about Jeremy Camp and his first wife, who he ultimately ended up losing.
That's right. And so Jeremy and Adie share an awesome perspective. Really excited to bring this to you. They also talk about what it's like to raise 3 kids.
Yes, which Adie Camp has some incredible thoughts and perspectives on so many different things. Her and I are going to be great friends. You'll also notice she has quite the accent, which I love because she's South African.
That's right. So if you guys want to find out more about Jeremy and Adie, as well as their new book that they just came out with called In Unison, you can find that in the show notes or description down below. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the show and rate it on whatever platform you're listening on. We really appreciate it when you do that. Let's go ahead and jump into this one with Jeremy and Adie. Jeremy, Adie, thank you so much for joining us today. I kind of want to just start off, Jeremy. We're both Indiana natives. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm curious who your all-time favorite Colts player is.
Oh, I mean, that's kind of easy. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be generic, but Peyton Manning. But Ben Utek actually is a really good friend of mine. You probably know Ben.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. So he's a good friend of mine, but Peyton Manning, I'm sorry. How can you not?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's a classic, but that is funny. And then, I don't think you didn't go to Purdue, but my dad's a Boilermaker. We got deep Indiana roots. Yeah, it's great. What? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm full like Drew Brees from Purdue and
the Drew Brees era, man. Love that.
Come on, man. Dude, that's
I'm a huge Drew Brees fan.
Hey.
Are you really?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like we have so much in common already. You guys didn't see this because we talked about it earlier, but Indiana, California, Nashville.
I know, this is kind of crazy. We had a fun little chat before we even came on, which that was great. You made fun of my sideburns.
Yes, I did the deep dive research and I found all the old pictures and everything. We'll post that during the YouTube video.
Yeah, I don't know how your guys' day is going, but ours is a little wild over here. I got hives. You probably can't see them, but we did a bunch like.
Yeah, you're having an allergic reaction to something.
And then I got a ripped T-shirt here. It's like that's just from me flexing though, Jeremy.
Yeah, you're just trying to flex. That's all you're trying to do. I mean, I do the same thing, so I understand.
Dude, you are low key jacked though, man.
I don't want to show off. That's why I kind of covered it up right now.
Man.
I didn't want to show you up. So
appreciate that.
Okay, so I want to jump in because I'm fascinated.
We're just dudes. We can't help it.
I know. Yeah, I feel like if we have any 2 guys on a podcast, they can just like run with sports and football.
Sorry for being entertaining. I don't know what else you want me to do.
So, Adie, here we go. We can just chit chat. All right. The first question. So we were talking about this. It actually. Your guys' movie, the I Still Believe, it was actually recommended to us as soon as it launched by Andrew's parents. It was like the first movie they watched the day that it
came out.
Yeah, it came out. It premiered.
March 13th, I believe, is the correct date.
Andrew is one of 5. They've had every single kid and grandkid and like extended family watch this movie. It's a very powerful movie. We were curious in talking, I'm just going to jump straight into like the hard questions.
I didn't know this was coming. So
we were saying it's such a successful movie. It's such a powerful movie, especially given the chaos going on in the world right now. Yeah. How is it for you guys having such a platform and success that relates to such vulnerable conversations and life experiences?
Well, I think that going into it, I think when you put yourself out there like that, it's almost expected to have these deeper conversations. And, there's a scripture that I love in Corinthians that says that we're called to comfort others with what we've been comforted. And so, what an almost beautiful time to put this out when literally the song even says, even when I cannot see, I still believe. And I think right now everyone's kind of in this place of going, I don't know it's the unknown, and we have no idea what's going to happen. And that's where true trust, for us, true trust in the Lord comes in. And, we're hearing stories of people saying, we have been struggling with this and struggling with our faith, and watching this renewed that hope within us. Because I think when you see suffering, which is a natural part of what we go through in life, I mean, Jesus, promises us in a sense in John, he goes, hey, I say these things, you'll have peace. In this world, you're going to face trials of many kinds. He goes, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And so this is a story of overcoming with Jesus in the midst of the most difficult time of my life. And so a lot of people right now are going through that, the most difficult time in their life, losing jobs, battling with actually the virus, or there's even death, which is horrible, and fear, anxiety. You're hearing of suicides. It's crazy. Yeah. And so for me, we're just going, God, please use this to impact this generation right now, and that people could truly walk out understanding that there's hope and it's only found in you. And that's kind of where, this movie, how exciting it's been to see the fruit of that. Yeah. So,
I have another question, steering off from that a little bit, and I want to come back to the movie, but talking about renewing hope in such a chaotic time. I'm curious, as parents, you guys have 3 kids ranging in what ages?
8 to 15.
Oh, wow. Those ages scare me. We have a 5-month-old and those ages. Yeah, no. But I feel like because everyone listening is going through this at the same time, we have a lot of people who are parents going with the theme of that, trying to restore hope. What do you tell your kids in a time like this, watching a movie like you guys have put out about hardships and suffering? How do you communicate that to a child of, I don't know, just not, yeah.
I mean, I think, obviously depending on the age group, you might phrase things a little bit differently. But I know for us, we've oftentimes just talked about hard things with our kids and just encouraged them. Life is hard, but this is in a sense where the rubber meets the road. Is this going to be, what kind of character is going to come out of us in this season? And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have hard moments or bad days or stressful, I mean, who isn't at some point feeling a little crazy in being quarantined? And some people I know are battling fear and anxiety. And so in a sense, just having grace for those places, but also I think that they know they're not alone in this, And so we've just been really trying to be intentional. We've been sitting and going through the book of James together and just connecting, instead of just going, hey, are you guys good? Okay, good. Let's just get through this together. We've really been stopping everything and trying to be intentional of connecting and going, okay, how are you really doing? Yeah. How's your heart in this? Are you struggling? How are you feeling? And then just letting them know, like, you're not alone in this. And then also just a reminder, like, Jesus said we were going to go through hard things, but he also said, take heart because I've overcome the world. So he didn't just leave us alone in these difficulties, but he said he would be with us, with them, And so just really as a family, pressing into those things together, I think has been huge for us.
Well, I think it's also the awareness and telling them that God's aware of this. It's not like he's gone, oh my goodness, I had no clue this was going to happen. I think that's kind of a big part of letting your kids understand that God's fully aware. He's still on the throne. He's still in control, and we can trust him, even when it doesn't make sense, So
you guys have also been doing some live stream duets.
Yes.
Beautiful. Shawn and I just to pay homage to that, kind of wanted to do our own here.
No.
You're not gonna.
I want to do
that. I do love singing. Adie, I was listening to the Benjamin Gate jams, absolute jams.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
But I know you guys. the movie I Still Believe, about your first wife and the amazingly tragic, I guess maybe is a fair way to put it. You guys have also experienced a miscarriage as well. That was kind of something that we experienced and we shared publicly. And it was such like this, difficult position to be in, because as you know, sharing the difficult things, and as you just said, it does lead to deeper conversations, into meaningful conversations, but it also is so tough to revisit frequently. It's like, you want to share hope every time you have that question asked and you have that conversation, but how have you guys found navigating that and just like not revisiting these same emotions that you experienced when it actually happened as you have these conversations going down the road?
Yeah, I think, a little bit, I'll share just kind of from my experience of what I went through, and you can kind of share.
Yeah.
But, I've realized that, when you go through a pain or a hurt, there's like an open wound, you know what I mean? So when you first have an open wound and everything you do, looking at it or not looking at it, or you rub it up against something, it's going to be hurt. But then there's a point when it actually heals up and becomes a scar. And so what happens is, you don't have the open wound anymore. That's been healed, but you are reminded of kind of the pain and what happened. You're reminded of the journey you went through by looking at the scar. And I think that's kind of been a lot of what I've realized through all this, is that I'm not seething in the hopeless, place. And I did, because for a while I felt kind of hopeless, after everything happened. Of course, God was so faithful in the midst of all that. But now you just go, yeah, that was hard. That was difficult. You know what I mean? But God has healed that open wound. And now there's just a scar remaining. I think so it's the reminder that it's not the seething pain. It's not the wound that's seeping out still. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? God has healed that. And so you have that reminder of his faithfulness, so.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I mean, as much as there's so many difficult things in life, and I think especially, when we went through our miscarriage, I was 14 weeks. And so we had literally waited the whole first trimester to just come out and make a big public thing. And it was literally like a couple of weeks after that I went in, and there was no heartbeat, And so it had sort of forced us into this public spectrum to have to deal with it publicly. But I think the beautiful thing of it was that there's so much power, I think, in vulnerability that people do feel like they're not alone, like, oh my gosh, that happened to you. And that was one thing I was actually shocked to hear of so many people that had struggled with pregnancies and struggled with miscarriages. Because I, up until then, in a sense, was kind of clueless, I think, and until it happened to me. And then it was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that have walked through this. And I think knowing how people got through and just seeing the faith that people have had through the different trials. And then, God is so present in some of our most difficult things. And I really felt that. It was like in my most broken, hurt, and sad moments, I felt God's presence so much. I literally would just sit down at the piano and just play worship songs and just bawl my head off. And I just felt like God was so present in those moments in healing. And I think when we share those with other people, there's such a sweetness. Yeah. Like it's God's way of redeeming those painful things, that we get to share those gifts with other people, and just realize, oh my word, like I'm not the only person that's gone through this. Yeah. And then the hope that we share with each other, it's kind of like, okay, we're in this together. Let's do this. Or, when someone's feeling down, it's just like, it's okay. You got this, you're going to make it through.
Yeah. I think kind of bouncing on what you said too, of feeling like you're not alone, even with the book that we wrote, the marriage book, totally. It's writing this to be very transparent. So we're very transparent in the book as well, sharing our struggles. We don't have a perfect marriage, contrary to popular belief,
Not at all.
But we basically have been really real and transparent. It's the same thing. And people don't feel like they're an island, like they're going through this alone. And so, you find that comfort in knowing, the new normal that you have with somebody. And so that's for sure, being transparent, being open is a massive part of what we have been in our journey trying to be.
I have a lot of questions about the marriage side of things, but we want to take it back. We always ask our couples, how did you first meet?
Well,
Oh,
and I'd actually been playing with my band for a few years, and we were touring around. And actually, it was Jeremy's very first tour. It was a tour con Festival con Dios.
I was opening up for her, by the way.
That's right, he was. Yeah, and so we met on tour, and our merchandise tables were set up really, really close to each other. And yeah.
I feel like you don't hear that very often. Our merchandise tables next to each other.
So weird, isn't it? It's like our kids would like, we say things that people don't understand, like, where's catering? Or where's
the craft services?
But yeah, we met on tour, and honestly, it was totally not love at first sight whatsoever. I was in a rock band.
That's good.
I didn't actually love Jeremy's music. And don't tell anybody. But yeah, I was just, I wasn't thinking that he was the fit for me. You know, I was looking for something completely different. And so when we met each other, I think we weren't trying to impress each other at all. We became friends really quickly, and we're just total idiots and goofballs with each other. But I think because of that, there was sort of a comfort level that was very quickly established, and we just became close friends. And I was blown away by his testimony. I'd never met anybody as young as him and had gone through so much trials and still was authentically saying, you know, I don't understand why God allowed all of this to happen, but I still believe. And that absolutely blew me away. So I was very intrigued. I was asking him tons of questions. And then I was also equally intrigued with his wife, Melissa, because the same thing, her faith was so strong. And she was young. You know, you don't stare cancer and death in the face and just try to think of like the most noble thing to say. Like that isn't a natural response. Really, I think what came out of her heart was authentically who she was. And it was such faith, you know, and I was so blown away by that. So I would just sit and kind of ask him tons of questions. And then we became, you know, great friends. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like, I wonder where Jeremy is. And then I'd be like, why do I even care where he is? You know?
I gave her a note and I was like, do you like me? Circle yes or no. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was perfect. It was beautiful. Very romantic.
Aww.
Sounds like George Strait style right there.
Yeah. I am curious. I just have deeper questions. I'm sorry. I'm very curious.
I like this.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We've done episodes before on like blended families. We've done episodes before about people marrying into adopted kids and just all these different scenarios for families. If you don't mind me asking, I would be curious, especially for our listeners, just in different scenarios, how both of you approached marriage. Again, Jeremy, you having been married before and lost your wife, and then Adie coming into, I don't want to say that baggage, but that already spot that's filled in his heart that you don't expect him to get rid of ever. But how do you blend that together and honor that from both perspectives?
Yeah, I think for me personally, you know, a lot of people say, how do you do that? That was good, Shawn. Even like, you know, I think people, they try to figure this out. That people have been upset with me, you know, going through this movie because, you know, people like to troll on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
And like, I thought that, yeah, exactly. I thought that she was your, you know, the love of your life. How could you get me married? You know, you get that. I'm like, here's the deal. God has expanded my heart. You know what I mean? And I don't think people understand that. It's like when you have a child, and we have 3 now. When you first have your first child, and then all of a sudden you realize that, oh, we're gonna have 2 children. You're going, how am I gonna love this second child as much as I love my first child? Like you kind of like.
We've had that exact thought.
And you're then what's amazing is your heart just goes, it expands. You know what I mean? And I think that for me, that's kind of just what happened. My heart just expanded. It wasn't a replacement. It wasn't like all of a sudden, you know, of course she's the one that God has chosen for me to walk this life through. And I'm so thankful. It's what a treasure. But God expanded my heart. And that's, I think for me, how I dealt with, you know, stepping forward in that is going, okay, Lord, when I felt guilty, saying, no. When I'm blessed you with something, receive my blessing. And that's what I did. And I'm so thankful I did, because she has been the backbone of this and been so supportive, you know, in the midst of me talking about my testimony. I mean, you know, sorry, I'm yapping here, but you know, she's asked a lot, how do you deal with, you know, your husband talking about another woman, you know, of course it was first wife, she's not here anymore, And she's like, well, listen, here's the deal. I've been so touched by this story, and I know it's not about me or not about Melissa or about you. It's about Jesus. And I think that's the whole reason why she can stand. And you can address that even more. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, first, grief changes you, and so the man that Melissa married is different from the man that I married.
Yeah.
When you go through something, it's like we talk about, it's the new normal. When you've gone through something so hard and so difficult, it changes, in a sense, who you are. And so I think because of that, Jeremy and my story was so different from his and Melissa's. Theirs was sort of the kind of this beautiful romantic fairy tale. And I think ours was, it almost felt a little bit more like, okay, this is real. Like, we're in the gutters together. How are we going to fight our way out of this? You know what I mean? And just walk through seasons of healing and those kind of broken things together. But just like Jeremy said, I was so deeply touched by their story. Like, literally, the Lord used it so much to change my heart and encourage things in me. And I just remember, it's not like I haven't had difficult days or insecure moments, but I just remember thinking, who am I to stand in the way of him sharing his testimony, because so many people have been touched by it, and because I was touched by it. And so there've been many times that I'm like, share your testimony. It is so powerful of what God did. And it's bigger than us, like Jeremy said, it isn't necessarily about me. It's not about Melissa and this competition between her and I, and so I feel this freedom in my heart to just go, she's totally my sister in Christ. We'll all be in heaven together one day. But right now, Jeremy has this beautiful testimony of how God got him through such a crazy hardship. And I want people to be encouraged and strengthened by that.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys are really good at, you guys have amazing perspectives, and you're better at talking than Shawn or I probably.
No, that's not true. It's just because you're asking the questions, so we were just responding to questions.
I always love these podcasts though, because sometimes I find myself so interested in the answer, and you guys will finish, and I'm like, oh, I have to ask you another question.
I'm doing a podcast, so.
That's only sometimes, though, as she said. Only some. I'm curious. Can you guys tell us the engagement story?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Have you read it, or you just want me to?
I actually haven't. Have you?
Okay.
I need to hear it from Jeremy's mouth.
Okay, I like this. Okay, because of the situation, I very much, very early on, we even talked about, I was like, I'm not going to play games in this whole thing. I've been,
There's too much at stake.
Yeah, too much at stake. I've been through grief and been through marriage, and so I'm not playing games. So at one point, I started feeling that guilty, because we were actually, I was liking her, and should I do this or not? And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to break it off, with her. So,
oh no.
I know. So I take her out. I'm like, hey, we need to go out and talk. And she kind of knew something was up. She told her friend.
I did. I had even told my friend that day. I was like, we weren't officially together, but I was like, I think Jeremy's going to shut this down. I just had a feeling,
So I decided to be romantic and take her to Applebee's. I was like, yes. So we go to Applebee's, and we go out, and literally, you guys, what came out of my mouth, she was sitting across the table from me. And I looked at her, and I was going to say, hey, this is just not going to work out. And I looked at her and said, do you feel like you can marry me? She literally says yes right away. And I went, okay. I go, well, I actually came here to kind of break it off with you. It's going to work out. But that didn't come out of my mouth. So that came out of my mouth. And here's the deal, because I was my personality is, I don't know if you guys do the Enneagram, but I'm an 8 with a 7 weight. So, which that is the challenger, confrontational, but also fun guy too. But I'm very much you're like, uh-huh. And so I looked at her, and if she would have said or delayed her response, I would have been like, I'm out, right away. But because she actually said yes, I knew that, okay, this is serious. We actually like each other. So that was kind of not how we got engaged, but kind of how we got engaged.
I was going to say, was that the official, were you engaged moving forward?
No, we just kind of looked at each other like, what the heck is happening?
We're trying to eat our food. And we're like, So
wow.
We got engaged, I think, 6 months later or something like that. But
with an actual official engagement.
Okay.
Had to make it special still.
Hey, I know we already did this, but here's your ring.
Here's your mask right here. So.
Today's episode is brought to you by Care of.
Our favorite, because we talk about it all the time. We've been using it for literally 3 years. It's vitamins, customized vitamins specific to you. I'm obsessed because I never, ever remembered to take vitamins until I started taking Care of.
Ain't that the truth?
You go online, you take a quiz, like what your goals are, what your needs are. Do you want to work on your hair? Do you want to work on digestion? Do you want to work on sleep? It has all of these awesome questions that then customize your pack of vitamins. They send you a box, and a box has enough packs to last you a month. You take 1 pack a day. Super easy. They now have, sorry, I'm going to rant because I love this company. They have their beauty line. So they have collagen powders, plant-based protein powders. They have stuff to help with your skin, with your nails, with your hair, with just everything. And I think it's awesome.
The great thing is it's all research back. All their supplements are proven in science, which is great. So the supplements actually work. And you get personalized milestones and rewards when you remember to take your vitamins and beauty supplements, which keeps you going on. I know that.
It's super easy to travel with. If you're gone for 3 days, you put 3 packs in your bag. I love it. They also have this, one of my favorite products of theirs is this really yummy collagen protein powder creamer. It's actually vanilla flavored, so I put it in my coffee every morning. You can put it in oatmeal. It's amazing. Okay, guys, if you guys want to try out Care of, we have 50% off your first order of Care of. Go to takecareof.com and enter code couplethings50. That's 50% off on your first order of Care of when you go to takecareof.com and enter code couplethings50.
We'll also have the link down below. Let's get back to it.
Let's do it.
Both of you have amazing careers and tour a lot. You travel a lot. I'm curious how you balance that while having 3 kids, while keeping marriage as a focus. That's not an easy thing to do.
No, for sure. For one, she's awesome. So.
Well, I was going to say, I think for me, it's keeping the main things the main things.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, for me, the main things are my marriage and my kids, and obviously my relationship with the Lord. And so if those 3 things are functioning and healthy, then I feel the freedom to do things outside of that, And so even practically, like on a daily basis, I'll just do even a practical checkpoint in my head. I'm like, okay, are the kids taken care of? Any responsibilities taken care of? And as soon as I can check those boxes, then I feel the freedom to pursue writing or singing or doing something that's a little bit, in a sense, me focused, I guess. And I think, essentially as well is I'm really prayerful about the things that opportunities, because obviously, I mean, as you guys know, there's so many opportunities that come our way, and it doesn't always necessarily mean every one of those opportunities are what we're supposed to be doing. And so I'm really just prayerful, like, God, you've got to show me if I'm supposed to be doing this. And then I think for me, if I know he has showed me and given me the green light, then I'm all in, But if he doesn't give me that, then I just have this hesitation and I don't feel the freedom to kind of dive fully right in. So I think those are kind of my little indicators, I guess.
Well, I think too, we make sure that everyone feels included. She had to tell me one time, she's like, hey, you got to tell me what's going on the road, because she would hear things that are awesome that happen that she heard from somebody else.
Like,
she's like, why didn't you tell me? Like, I don't know, I just moved on to the next thing, I guess. I'm just a typical guy. And so, I had to learn that that's not how she operates, and she wants to feel like she's a part of what we do. And so we've made, I made her and made the kids a big part of what we do. And so she'll say, hey guys, Dad's sharing Jesus in front of a bunch of people tonight. Let's pray for him. And just so you know that God is using you, and you're going to have rewards in heaven because you let your daddy go out and share these things. Now, we also do take our kids with us a lot, and my family with me a lot. So it's not like we are always separate. I mean, we've made a very intentional time for us as a family. I would say at least 50% of the time that I'm gone, they're with me. You know what I mean? At least. And so it's important that we do things together, so they feel a part of it. But when they're not, we just make sure they still feel a part of it.
Yeah.
So.
Shawn went on tour, I guess 3 months after we got married.
Yeah.
The day after we got married, we had to fly out to Oakland, and I started football training camp. I never signed with the Colts, Jeremy, but I gotta I went to mini camp and gotta play with like Vinatieri and all the boys.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Love that.
But it was easily the hardest time in our marriage, her being on tour, because we're on completely different wavelengths. She's like, when you're on tour and in front of thousands of people every night, you're living the life. You're like, it's like this weird high that you're on, essentially. And I'm sitting at home. I couldn't go with her. So I'm like, I just got cut from an NFL team, and I'm on the, the slumps. And I think it's so good that you intentionally share the good things that go on, because I think we got so disoriented that Shawn almost felt guilty sharing the good things because she knew that I was like, bumming at home. And so I think we've definitely matured past that, but the touring and traveling, that can be very, very tough. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
I think when you know that you're in it together, and so I think for us, it was like, we've got to
include each other.
Yeah. And just keep this a team thing. You know what I mean? And then acknowledge the sacrifices that you're each making, because in a sense, like, I'm making sacrifices holding the home front down, and I'm missing out on all these incredible things. And, Jeremy's going to so many different countries, and I'm like, Paris. Oh my gosh, I want to go there, but he acknowledges the sacrifice I make. But then in a sense, he's making sacrifices too, because he's away from the kids. And so like, he's missing out milestones, and he's missing out rad conversations and memories that I get to make with them. And so just knowing like, we're in this together, and it requires both of us. It's a cost on both accounts.
Yeah, I think you have to. That's one thing, is that if you point that one person has it better than the other, or whatever, or vice versa, whatever that may be, one has worse than the other, that's when the conflict arises, because that won't get you anywhere. You gotta acknowledge the good in what the person is doing.
Preach.
So you guys have been married 16 years?
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
How long have you guys been married?
4 years tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah. So we're getting there. But I'm curious, because you guys have been married 16 years. I mean, just talking about 4 years, the amount of highs and lows you go through in a relationship, the things you learn, the trials you go through. What are some of those overarching lessons you've learned for the highs and for the lows?
What do we have to look forward to years 4 to 16 of marriage?
There's so much. First of all, I think that's the whole thing, is that you'll realize what we were saying is that everyone goes through these things. Yeah. And when you start to open up and start being transparent, you're like, oh, okay, we're not alone. We're not crazy in our marriage, But conflict resolution is a massive part of it, with communication. And it's learning how, as you know, it's learning how each person, how they tick and how they deal with things. I have to process. She wants to deal with it right away. I can't, because I have to process. And so in the beginning, I'm
like, what's wrong with you? Let's talk this through now.
So she would think that, he's not as
That's committed. Literally us. I'm like, I need to know. And he's like, I need my space.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, in the beginning as well, I processed him needing space as him not being as committed. Right. Like, it felt like rejection to me, because I was like, okay, we're going through this hard thing right now. This is where I need you to show in our conflict, like, that you're the most committed. And I had to sort of shift the way that I was thinking through that, because I realized he was committed, but he needed the space to think through how he felt about things and how he was going to process some of that stuff,
Yeah, because if she pushed me too much, then I would actually get more and more upset, and actually would get very volatile and be like,
We just had this conversation. We just had this guy.
But so this is what you have to do. So we have a marriage counselor here. So this is what you have to do. Basically, I have to understand, and she has to say, can you at least tell me that you will talk through this, soon, and not like,
don't sweep it under the rug.
And I have to acknowledge, yes, I will. And she has to acknowledge, I can't deal with it right now. And if I tell her, hey, you need to quit pushing me right now, then she needs to stop. What I mean? But we have to acknowledge both, like, hey, you need to stop. And she's like, are you going to deal with it eventually? Yes. And that's a massive part of conflict resolution. And I think too, communication, there's a couple things too that I'll tell you guys that we've learned is, and it's in the book too, but don't tell each other that you're okay if you're not. And so what that means is, like, I'll give a practical small thing. Like I say, hey, I love how you're looking over.
You guys are so cute.
You guys are awesome. You should hang out, of course.
Yes, please. Please.
So, she would, if I would say, hey, can I go out with my friends? And if she didn't want me to because she felt like we needed to connect, then she needed to say, actually, I'd rather you not. And I have to understand that she's not being ungracious or not wanting me to hang out, that she actually in her heart is like, I need to connect. But if she says, yeah, go ahead, but then expects me just to read her mind that known or just should have known that we needed to have time. It's like, we don't think that way. You tell me that, hey, no, I don't. And if you're okay, then I'm going to go and I'm going to have the freedom to go and not wonder if you're sitting there at home frustrated with me. Because what happens is a lot of people will be like, yeah, it's all good. And then they start seeding inside. Yeah. And then that little tiny root will start to grow. And then pretty soon, everything that you do, apart from your spouse, like, I'm going to go to the store. They're like, oh, you're always going away from me. Like, it just starts becoming irrational because you've grown this gross root of bitterness and resentment. And so don't tell the person you're okay if you're not. You have to tell the person. They cannot read your mind.
Totally.
Wow.
I think for me as well, one of the things that I had to learn is I can't rely on Jeremy for my emotional well-being. Yeah. Like, I have to find my value in Christ. I have to find my worth in who Jesus thinks I am. Yeah. Because if I'm looking to Jeremy, who's awesome but totally flawed, then it's just that I'm going to get frustrated with him. I'm going to put unnecessary pressure on him to read my mind, to know where my heart is. And that's essentially unfair on him. And he can't do that anyway. We were never meant to complete each other. Yeah. You know, I think there's this sort of narrative in our culture of like, you complete me and we get married and we live happily ever after. And it's not true at all. It's like, okay, you've got two imperfect people. Now you're going to start rubbing the heck out of each other. Do you know what I mean? And find all the things that you disagree on. And you've got to find this middle ground. But I think also knowing that the beauty of marriage is knowing each other's weaknesses and still loving each other past that. Yeah. And so it's like, for
Isn't that
us,
Jesus? That's Jesus.
You know, I mean, totally. It's like, 16 years of marriage in, for us, I'm going, Jeremy's literally seen me at my worst and has still chosen to love me. And it's like, we've done things to hurt each other. We've said things that are hurtful. We've totally done things we regret. And we've had to work through forgiveness and stuff. And even like Jeremy said, it's like, you've got to keep your heart soft towards each other. You can't let that root of bitterness come up because hardness isn't something that happens overnight. And really the breakdown and divorce in marriage happens because our hearts become so hard. It's like irreconcilable differences, And so for us, I think we've just learned to have to deal with those things. Like, don't let a root of bitterness creep up and don't let your heart get hard. And even if you have to ask God to give you supernatural love for each other. I mean, there's times that I'm like, I don't like Jeremy very much right now, even further than that, more than just not like, it's just going, I don't even know. Like, I have no ounce of love in my heart whatsoever from him right now. I'm hurt. I feel like my heart is hard. And I've literally got on my knees and just gone, Jesus, you are supernatural. You're bigger than me. And you can give me the things that I need to love. Because love is really ultimately supernatural. It was God's idea in the first place. And so to go to him and say, God, I need you to give me what I don't have. And I can't tell you, like, he's done it. He's helped us forgive. He's helped us move past hurts and to where we really genuinely love each other. We're best friends. And I'm stoked to be married for however many more years,
Can you guys write a book or something? Like about marriage, maybe?
Okay, Adie, I love how you did say in one of your interviews that you don't need Jeremy as much as he thinks you do. Freaking classic. But you guys have had an epic 2020 so far. So let's see. In February, I Still Believe memoir was published. March, the movie came out. And then just last week, this April, you guys have published your book together called In Unison. Can you tell us about that? You've already shared so many amazing marriage tips, but I would love to talk about the book.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, a lot of what we're sharing is in the book, but like, I think the reason why writing this is we all need as much tools as we can get in any part of life, but in marriage, you need the best amount of tools to walk into this because a lot of times we go into marriage and we might go through counseling and people talk, but you're kind of in la la land at first and it's just the chemistry's there and everything's kind of infatuation. So you're almost like we're not going to deal with that. So you don't actually think about it and process through it. But I think this book for me was one of those things saying, okay, we both went, how can we provide the best tools possible that we know, not that we've figured out marriage, not that we have a perfect marriage at all by any means, but how can we provide the best tools of what we've learned? And I think, ultimately the biggest thing is people go into marriage and they have this disillusionment that they're going to fulfill all my needs that we were talking about, and that's why she was saying, I don't need you as much as you think I do, because she's like, Jesus is the one that provides all my needs. And I think people get into marriage and they have this kind of expectation that, man, everything's going to be great and they're going to fulfill my needs, me. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm not happy. You're not doing your part. So I'm going to move on, or you're not letting me fulfill my dreams. And so I'm going to move on. And it's like fully contrary to what Jesus says about marriage. And, I think for us, we're learning so much still, but I think the massive thing is, and you've kind of touched on it in this book, is just going, you cannot do marriage without Jesus. No. And you can't do marriage without putting Christ first in your life and realizing that he is the provider of all of your needs and your spouse is not. And it doesn't negate our responsibility, Andrew, like as a husband, is to go, oh, I don't have to do my part because it's all about Jesus and he provides all her needs. It's not that. But when you're spending time with Christ, the fruits of the Spirit naturally overflow from your life, and you will do what Christ has called you to do, to lay down your life before, your wife, as Christ laid down his life for the church. And so those are natural outpourings of, spending time with Christ. So anyway, there's so many things. That's why it's like, we talk about.
Yeah. I think our heart behind it was just going, we want to change the world around us, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's not like we have it all together by any means, but just going, hey, these are the things we've learned. We want to be honest and transparent and just go, we've struggled with these things and this is how we got through it. And just with hopes that would impact other people's lives and marriages and give them tools to not give up, So,
well, we even talked about, we were talking to somebody who has a podcast that's mostly for singles. And we're like, this is for singles as well, because prepare yourself. You know what I mean? Like, everyone needs that. Tools, well, because we went into marriage too. And I feel like that what we've done is that, with our parents, we've taken the good and spit out things that were like, yeah, that's not a good element of or friends of ours that were like, oh, I love that. Do not like that at all. You know what I mean? That's not going to. And I think that we've been very, in a sense, hopefully trying to be teachable. Not that we've always maybe acted upon it right away, but we've wanted to watch the things and grow from people. And we have people in our lives too. We talk about, have people in your life that you're real with, because once again, don't wait till it's too late, because we've had so many friends that have gotten divorced and they come to us and you're like, we had no clue. And they've already for 5 years or whatever, had this very volatile relationship, and they've been bitter towards each other, and their heart is so hard that they're like, you know what, I've already made my mind up. Like, we're trying to counsel them through it. Like, basically we've already made our mind up. And that doesn't mean that it's impossible. God can break through any barrier, and wall, but most of the time they end up getting divorced. And it's very sad because they waited too long. So this is one of those, don't wait too long. Here's a tool to help walk through those things.
Yeah. Where can people pick up In Unison?
Really right now, the best, because everyone has Amazon.
True.
Yes.
Yeah. Barnes & Noble. I mean, any online retailer. Yeah. I mean, you can go to the stores eventually, but don't go right now. But yeah, Amazon really is the best one to go to. So.
Adie, as I understand it, this isn't the first book you've written. We actually share something in common. I wrote a children's book as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yours is called Even Me, is that right?
Yes.
Nice. Mine's called You Are, but I'll have to check yours out.
Yeah. It's actually probably sounds like a similar concept,
Yeah. Talking about the hardening of the hearts. I was reading a book recently, and it talks about, it kind of interviews like elderly couples, and it talks about how quickly the rift can occur, where it's like, even if it's a small dispute, the two parties, if they don't resolve it or have the intention to resolve it, as you were talking about, they go to their separate friend groups or community, whatever it is. And if it's not a strong community, a lot of times the people will just like kind of be the yes man of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that he did that, or I can't believe that she did. And then it like reinforces that, oh, I've been wronged and they need to apologize. So anyway, I think it's a really good thing you guys are talking about in the book, and I appreciate you sharing that. Do you want to do?
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay. A little more lighthearted. We have the 3 questions. So 3 questions that we ask every couple, but you have to choose who goes first without knowing the question.
Oh.
Okay. So this will end positive, I promise. But Adie, what is your biggest pet peeve with Jeremy?
That he doesn't do the dishes.
Okay.
Classic.
Okay. Now, Jeremy, your biggest pet peeve with Adie.
What is my biggest pet peeve with you? I don't know. That's why is that so hard?
You know what's hilarious, Jeremy?
What?
Every time we do this, the girl has
The
one.
girl knows, the guy's always like,
And
nothing.
and the guy
Nothing.
either they just don't think about it that much, or they play this like political game where they're like, well, I don't want to pay for this later. So
I'm gonna do
And I actually love, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we've seen it from the husbands before where their immediate reaction is, oh, I don't know, babe, what is my pet peeve for you?
I would just say, honestly, we have a tendency, like when we go on the road and come home, she leaves all her stuff out.
I do. I
in the
take
bedroom.
like weeks
She
to
takes
unpack.
forever,
Oh, same.
and it drives me a little crazy.
Totally.
It's the worst thing in the, oh my gosh, it's the worst having to unpack.
Okay.
Okay. So part 2, now Jeremy, you have to go first.
Okay.
What do you love the most about Adie?
I love her. I shared this last night because we had a thing at the table with all of our kids, and we shared the things that we love about each other, which was really good and encouraging.
That's cool.
And what I said about her is that I've never met anybody who is so in her pursuit for godliness and her pursuit with Jesus to say, Lord, please show me the things in my heart that aren't right. She constantly is asking the Lord to open up. It's what David said, search me, O God, and try me and see if there be any wicked way in me, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. I really feel like that she does that, and I love that about her.
Now, Adie, what do you love the most about Jeremy?
There are lots of things.
Yes. Just kidding.
I think Jeremy has a very strong personality, and a lot of people know him for his big personality. And I think what is equally attractive to me and beautiful to me about him is he has the same strength on the opposite spectrum when it comes to his sensitivity to the Lord, and that he listens to the voice of the Lord and he's sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit. And so I don't have to ever worry about him, I don't know, just getting off the rails or whatever it is. It's as much as he's all in and passionate and strong, but he really does, his heart is to be in line with the Holy Spirit and to just have that sensitive heart towards him. And I absolutely love him because it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like I can trust him, and there's the safety in it, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love that.
You guys are great. Okay. Best piece of you're great. Best piece of relationship advice or marriage advice that you've either been given or would give based off your experience.
I'll give a funny one first. Is that cool?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
My dad always said, a happy wife is a happy life.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Good.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. I think if I have to think about the earliest piece of marriage advice that I heard was that in order for there to be an argument, somebody has to be selfish. And I just remember hearing that and just going, oh, wow, okay. So I get to play a part in this of whether or not I'm going to be selfish or unselfish to keep this argument going. And I think if I think about it, it sort of set the tone for how I view conflict of just going, okay, I can either be a finisher or I can keep this thing going, you know? So I think that, yeah.
I
like that a lot.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. I think mine is basically I heard this from a bunch of friends. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But I realized like what happened, you know, because a lot of times I'd be frustrated because I didn't want to deal with it. You know, like That's me and Andrew. And I'd roll over frustrated, and I'd wake up, and then sometimes I wake up and be really just hard right away. Like all of a sudden there was nothing, no tenderness in my heart. And so I really understood that. It's just saying, it doesn't mean you have to resolve it right away, but at least be like, hey, I love you. We'll deal with this tomorrow. I don't want to deal with it right now. At least kind of give some kind of leeway, because I understood that, like, that's why it says that, because your heart naturally, even almost like when you're asleep, it's like, you know, like you have dreams about,
keep the door open.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all of that. And I mean, again, just write a book or something. If anybody wants to find you, where can they find you? We will put all of the information in the description below, but this is kind of your opportunity to just, if there's anything you want people to know, the book, the movie, your guys' foundation, if you guys want to talk about that,
awesome.
Run with it.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, so Instagram, Jeremy Camp Official, and then Adie Camp. Facebook,
JeremyCamp.com.
Yeah.
You know.
Spotify, same thing, Jeremy Camp, and then Adie, just on Spotify. I'm trying to think what else there is.
So the movie is right now, because it was in theaters, I still believe it was in theaters March 13th. Of course, theaters closed down. The hard thing is, it was the #1 movie in America on Friday night. When it first came out, so it was just kind of like
amazing.
Hey, but like, so you just know what's like. Okay, Lord, how do you gauge what's happened? But it's on, you know, any video on demand, like Amazon, you know, Prime Video or Amazon Video, Google Play, Apple TV, anything that's that. That's right now. It's out. People should check it out because they're stuck at home, and it's just a really good time to discuss some of the deep elements of that. Yeah. Our book in Unison, of course, Amazon is the best. Barnes & Noble, all that. And then, Speaking Louder is a ministry that we started years ago that I go overseas and basically do these evangelistic outreaches. But we try to make it a threefold thing. It's going to, went to India recently, and we did a full scale, 16,000 people showed up. You know, Uganda, we had 35,000 people show up, but we also build homes, and we built a medical facility in Uganda. And we have kind of a network of resources that we put together for these, churches, local churches, that we have this kind of conference before the event. So it's very much not just like, we're going to play a concert and share the gospel and that's it. It's, hey, let's build a hospital. Let's build homes. Let's have a conference for the leaders and encourage leaders in the area. So that's been incredible. We had to cancel our Georgia. We had one in Eastern Europe in Georgia we were going to, but had to cancel it. But that's just what we do. Like we have a heart for missions. It's a massive part of what we want to step into more and more as we move on. So
it's just sharing hope and then leaving something tangible behind,
Wow.
I love that.
Wow. Well, we had a blast with you guys today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you both for your music. Thank you for the live streams. Thank you for shaving your sideburns, Jeremy. And if you guys want to find out more about their book that they wrote together called In Unison, you can find that in the show notes down below. But it was a real pleasure talking. So thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you guys.
Much,
that was awesome.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.